everyone, and welcome to ProWritingAid 101 for business users. I'm Micah McGuire, ProWritingAid's Growth Marketing Manager, and today I'm joined by Tom Wilde, our Head of Client Solutions. As usual, it is awesome to see all of you here today. For today's agenda, we are going to be covering the most useful reports for business writers, including the Real-Time Checker and Goals report, the Summary report, the Readability report, the Sticky Sentences report, the Style report, and then if we have time, we'll also be covering the Overused Words report. Along with this, we do have a sneak peek of a new feature that we're going to be talking about and how you can use it with these reports, and we'll be getting into that during this session. But here's a hint, it does involve ChatGPT 3. All right, so of course, as usual, we do want to make sure that this is driven by what you guys would like to know. So if at any point during the walkthrough you have any questions, please feel free to throw those in the Q&A box, and we will have 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the session to answer any Q&A. We do plan to get you guys in and out of here in 45 minutes. So if for some reason we are unable to get to your question, please feel free to email it to hello, HELLO, at ProWritingAid.com. Just put in the subject line that you attended today's Business 101, and we'll make sure to get back to you as soon as possible. All right, Tom, well, I think that covers our housekeeping. So shall we jump to the walkthrough?
Yeah, let's do that. Hi, everybody. Great to have you along today, this morning, this evening, this afternoon, wherever you are. So as Micah said, my name's Tom Wilde. I'm Head of Client Solutions at ProWritingAid. That means I spend most of my time talking to customers about how to use ProWritingAid to deliver value to their team. So that's improving their writing processes, improve the end product, the written documentation they create, whether that's customer service teams, sales teams, marketing teams, you name it, everybody writes at work, and ProWritingAid makes a difference to them. Now, as you probably know, if you're familiar with the tool, we have a wide range of integrations that we create so that we are beside you as a writer wherever you write. Today, we're going to be running most of the demonstration in our web editor that sits on our website and is available to all users. But we'll also have a quick look at the Microsoft Office add-in in Word. We'll have a look at the Chrome extension too. We've got a couple of fantastic new desktop apps for Windows and Macs that are available. All of these are downloadable from our homepage, so take a look there. What I want to do, as Mike explained, is talk you through the kind of user experience. So where and how to build ProWritingAid into your writing process. Many of my customers describe it as something along the lines of a second pair of digital eyes, or the editor that sits on your shoulder. And that's exactly what we think of ProWritingAid as. Let me share my screen and we'll get straight into this. Okay, so what you can see on the screen here is a sample document open in our web editor. So this is an internal report, like a memo, really. And the first thing before we launch into any of the reports, we're going to take a quick look at settings. Settings are important because it's how you can specify which version of English you're using. We have slightly different rules, slightly different spellings, depending on whether in the UK, US, Australia, or Canada. So you can set your English type. Most of my customers, although I'm in the UK, most of my customers in the US, so I tend to use US English. But the really interesting stuff happens in reports. And this UI, this user interface here with the buttons across the top, is present in all of our almost all of our integrations. So it will look very familiar to you. And it's worthwhile familiarizing yourself with it. As we'll go on to see, there is a lot you can do with ProWritingAid. It digs in deep into writing, and writing is a broad and personal subject. Now, not all of these reports are going to mean something to everybody, if you see what I mean. So you're going to find 3, 4, maybe 5 reports that deliver great value to you. And it takes a little bit of time just getting to know the tool and seeing where that value lies. And we're going to help you find that. We're going to give you some metrics and some guidance on where your weak spots are. So let's begin with the real-time checker. The real-time checker works constantly in the background when you got it switched on. And it's looking for mistakes, but it's also looking for potential improvements. Okay, so if we look, as I turned it on, it started scanning, and you can see it's up to 67 here in this little counter in the top left corner. So it's found 67 potential improvements in this document. And you can see each one is underlined in a different color in the document. Now, if I want to understand what those colors are, by going over to the sidebar and the improvements tab and clicking on the filter, you can see blue is grammar, purple is passive voice, yellow or gold is style, and red is spelling. So you can filter, or you can look at all of them, which is what we're going to do right now. And taking or reviewing the suggested changes could not be easier. Simply hover on the highlight, a pop-up will appear showing you what the correction is, and to click, to make the change, you just click here. First one's really obvious. Any spell checker is going to find that, but we'll get a little bit more complex. So here, this is a style or readability issue. We define readability as the kind of as the ease with which you can transfer the information from the screen or the page to your reader's brain. Okay, so you want to make something as readable as possible. We're not talking about dumbing it down, talking about making it more readable. And here you can see this is a classic mistake in English. I'm using two different verbs. I'm using managed to complete. And actually, if I just use completed as my stronger singular verb form, it's improving the readability of that sentence. It's making it easier to digest. I might disagree, so I could ignore that. And you are welcome to ignore. Obviously, writing is subjective to a degree, so ignore where you don't agree. Disable, I'd be a little bit more cautious about using disable. It's a permanent disable. So if you need to re-enable a rule, you'll need to come through our support team. But I like that change. I'm going to make the change and move on to the next. You can probably see these highlights are appearing here and in the sidebar. It's entirely your user choice. You can do your edits in the sidebar. You can review the whole document in the sidebar. I prefer to work in the body of the document and go top to bottom. Again, some writers will turn the real-time checker off and only turn it on again once they've finished a particular paragraph or a page. Others like to have it on permanently. Okay, this highlight, 4 sentences in a row starting with the same word. Okay, so this is interesting because a lot of grammar checkers won't pick something like this up. What we're looking at here is repetition, because repetition leads to boredom. Boredom is disengagement with your document. You don't want your readers to be bored. So be wary of repetition. I'm going to change that to hour. And you'll see the tool reevaluates that whole paragraph and fixes the other repetitive highlights. The last highlight I'm going to show you before we move on, this is an interesting one because it's picking up the passive voice. Now, most of us have heard what the passive voice is. We don't necessarily understand what it is, but we know that passive voice is overused in business English. It's not incorrect grammatically, but we tend to overuse it. We do that because we make it things to sound more important. Yeah, we think it makes us sound more important, but actually you're going against the grain. You're not delivering the information in the simplest way to which your reader expects. There are reasons for using the passive voice, but generally you're better off using the active. Now, for those of us who don't understand what this is a good point to show the in-app learning in ProWritingAid. And this information icon takes you exactly there. So if I click on the information, the little eye here, it's opened a separate window containing an article that describes the passive voice and how you can change it to the active voice. And it even includes an embedded video and a link to a full article. The video uses some Jackie Chan quotes to demonstrate the difference between the passive and the active voice. It's quite light, but it's meant as a way of reinforcing what you're learning, building your skills and capability. We are not just interested in fixing your document. We are interested in helping you become better writers in the long term. Okay, you can see the machine learning that powers ProWritingAid here. It's trying to understand the context of the sentence. It suggested 2 options because it doesn't know if we're using team as a singular or plural noun. Both are totally fine. So this is up to me to decide. I'm going to select that one and apply it. Okay, so the real-time checker, really simple. The report that we have. It is like that safety net. It does a high level view and offers incremental improvement. But by the time you've gone top to bottom in your document, you will have a much more polished, more accurate, less mistake-ridden piece of writing. Just a quick note before we move on. We've talked about the improvement sidebar. I'm going to show you goals. Goals is really important because it's how we measure your writing. Okay, so we think of writing as more of a science than an art. We break it down into constituent building blocks, give you the scores for those blocks, and help you focus on the areas that need most help. So here you can see I've got my document type set to report. That's important because it will the type of document you've got selected will define which metrics are showing. So here, grammar and spelling is obviously critically important, and I'm way off the mark. I'm at 35%. My target, 80% or higher. Okay, so that's why I've got a little exclamation mark and it's in this yellow color. Some of these scores are in green because I'm on target. So readability, I'm doing okay. My readability grade for this document is 8. My target score is a readability score of 10 or less. And we'll look at readability in a little bit more detail in a minute. These scores, well, they have two purposes really. Number one, from a personal point of view, they're a great way of giving you an idea of a benchmark, what you should be achieving with each of your documents. So you will know as you become familiar with using ProWritingAid that you regularly hit a grammar and spelling score of, let's say, 70% on the first draft of your document. And if you're way off target, okay, you want to know why. So it's a good way of monitoring your progress individually, but it's also good if you're a team leader or manager and you want to use a kind of QA tool, if you like. So we have many customers from ProWritingAid who use this as a way of saying to the teams, hey, don't submit this proposal or send that email until you're hitting, until you're hitting your targets for grammar and spelling, for style guide, for sentence length, whatever it is, whatever the most important metrics. Okay, and then as you'd expect, these are dynamic. So if I do continue to make changes, let's just watch that 35% score for grammar and spelling. Let's make a few more changes. We've got a verb agreement error, plural of agreement error. We've got some business jargon. We've got missing commas, so accept those, another missing comma. Yeah, and I'm now up to 38%. So you see your progress in real time. You're getting instant feedback. You don't have to wait to go on a training course to be told what your writing's like. You're getting it right at the point of need. Okay, so that's the real-time checker. That's goals. You're starting to build a picture of which areas you need to focus on. If we want to go into a bit more detail, the summary report is a great place to start. It's like goals on steroids. It's going to take you into more detail and give you a whole host of information. Again, it's good for you, but it's also good for team members if you're managing a team. So here's my summary report. The top 3 scores, always at the top of the report, are grammar, spelling, and style. And we know that I'm off target for each of those. Then I've got the areas where my document's looking great. So these are all the metrics where I'm on target. And I can click through to all of the relevant points in this report. So if I want to know more about readability grade, let's click on readability grade. It's going to take me to a bit more detail about my score. So I can see here's my score. I can see an explanation, more links. And here I've got a really simple to understand visual that basically tells me 15% of my paragraphs or thereabouts are still very difficult to read. So I might be on target. I still might want to run that readability report to dig into those. You can see this report is really detailed. Take time familiarizing yourself with it, understanding again where the value lies for you. Be time well spent. Underneath the areas where my document looks great, I've got these areas where my document needs more work. We know spelling and style. But look, we've also got sentence length, business jargon, glue index, and complex paragraphs. They are all areas I need to pay more attention to. So in my mind, I'm starting to build a picture of which of these other reports I need to run. As business writers, you will probably find the reports to the left-hand end of the ribbon as the most useful ones. I would say from sticky sentences through to summary, they're where you're going to focus your efforts. with the exception of acronym. Acronym is a really useful report for business writers. And like I said, we find most ProWritingAid users, most regular users, have 3, 4, maybe 5 reports that are their favorites, that are the ones that deliver the most impact for them. The reports tend, yeah, Micah,
Tom, I was just going to say, in case we don't have time to cover the acronym report in action, can we cover what that usually does for users?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, acronyms is a really good way of finding where you're missing or where you haven't explained any acronyms you're using. So, you know, accepted kind of best practice in business writing is that you always explain an acronym when. So acronym report will pick up and find all the examples where you've used an acronym, but you haven't explained it the first time you're using it. We should get a chance to run this in a little bit. So the reports run in one of 2 ways. Style and grammar we'll show you right now. It's very similar to the real-time report. My machine's a little bit slow tonight, so sorry about that. But you'll see here, I'm getting highlights, or I'll get highlights that I can make, and a pop-up where I can make a simple one-click change. The difference is here, what it's doing is grouping together all of my improvements by kind of subject match, if you like. So I can work through each of my examples of passive voice one at a time, review it, look at the possible options for changing it. There we go. It's scored out now. I'm moving on. Personally, from the STAR report, the areas I really find most useful, business jargon phrases. This will pick up on the way of using words like bandwidth and suggest changing for capacity or paradigm shift. I mean, there aren't many examples of jargon that are worse than that. Change that to significant change. I also really like the readability enhancements, because these are those quick wins from using plain English. Why are you saying to be able to? You could just say to instead. Okay, the meaning is exactly the same, but you're saving your reader 3 extra words. You're cutting out the fluff, if you like, and getting to the point. So, like I said, style and grammar work in that way. You can simply use a sidebar to find the particular issue. Grammar here picks up spelling as well. Navigate to the point in question. To see here with grammar issues, the first point in the top of the pile here is about where I'm leaving 2 spaces rather than 1 space between sentences, and suggesting correcting that to 1 space. So it's a simple one-click change for style and grammar. Other reports are more kind of advisory, like we said. So let's take a look at the readability report. Now we know, in fact, no, we'll start with a quick one on sentence length report. So sentence length is great because it really simply demonstrates and shows me where my long sentences are, and long sentences lead to disengagement. Sentence variety is good, but really we shouldn't have any sentences over, I'd say, maximum of 30 words. If you're an economist reader, I think the limit there is more like 15 or 18. Okay, and here I've got this really simple visual showing my document in sentence order chronologically by number of words. So I can just click on this 39 here, and it'll take me instantly to the 39-word sentence in my document. And from there, it's up to me to edit that sentence. Now, we're going to come on to hopefully give you a sneak peek of a brand new tool within ProWritingAid that gives you a bit of a leg up, a bit of a boost in helping you rewrite those sentences. And we'll get to that in a minute. Let's have a look at readability. Readability is another kind of advisory report, readability is looking at my paragraph level readability. You can see it gives me some readability scores. Most of us are familiar probably with ProWritingAid or Kincaid grade, I'd suggest, but we give 4 different scores here. And then it highlights which of my paragraphs are very difficult to read, and I can navigate to each of those through the app. Now you can see here, although I'm on target overall for readability, the readability of this particular paragraph, 42.4. On the ProWritingAid, that's way off the target. Okay, I should be really hitting around 60 to 70. That's our aim in ProWritingAid, which means you want to do one of two things, or preferably both. The first is to look at the average number of words you're using per sentence. Try and reduce that, which means using shorter sentences. The second is look at average number of syllables per word, which basically means using shorter, generally simpler vocabulary to try and ditch those long, unnecessarily complex words that you're using. Now, let's get into how we can help you with this, because traditionally, ProWritingAid is all about you and helping you become better writers. So it's up to you to make the edits. We help you, we point you in the right direction, we give you tips about words you can change. There are tools within here. But now, with the help of ChatGPT, which we've recently harnessed within ProWritingAid, we're able to offer you rephrasing. So let's have a look at how that might work. I'm going to go back to my summary. I'm going to go back to my real-time report. I think it's 7:30 over here in the UK. And I think for some reason my machine is on evening time. There we go. And I'm going to highlight this sentence, and you'll see I've got the option to rephrase it here. And it then takes that sentence and I can rephrase it in a number of different ways. So the original sentence is, tech-wise, our goal is to deliver feature parity as quickly as possible so colleagues' first exposure to the new VI and tool set does not feel like a step backwards. That's a long mouthful, let's face it. If I click on shorten, well, you can see it's already clicked. So shorten will shorten it to something that's much pittier, much more direct. I can even make it longer if I want to. I can make it more formal, or I can make it more informal. So have a explore with some of those. Have a look at some of the options it provides you, and generally, it will provide provide a solution that is much closer to what you need in terms of readability or in terms of engagement.
And then also to note for that fluency, that is generally directed at English as a second language speakers. However, it can be very useful for increasing your writing's flow, because we all know we run into sentences that just doesn't feel like the exact right way to say it. You might want to check out that fluency rephrasing, because sometimes that will help with flow and help you put your finger on that phrasing that you were trying to find, but just were blanking on.
Yeah, that's a great point, Micah. So there you can see fluency running there on the screen. As we said, this is a brand new feature. It's not fully released and won't be for a while. We're giving you a sneak preview. We hope to be rolling this out in the next, maybe as soon as the next couple of weeks. It'll be on it'll probably be going out to groups before we can do a full rollout. But we're really excited about this. You probably read it in the news in the last 6 to 8 weeks, all of the excitement about OpenAI and ChatGPT and GPT-3. And this is how we are harnessing some of the power of those new large language models that are available. Okay, let's move on. The one report I want to show you before we get into some more detail around kind of administration settings and customization is sticky sentences, and that's because it's a personal favorite of mine. So sticky sentences is a unique report to ProWritingAid, and what it's doing is looking for sentences that are sticky, so sentences that are slowing your reader down, and those are the sentences that contain a high proportion of glue words. So glue words equals sticky. Glue words are the 200 most commonly used words in the English language. So they're your prepositions, your articles. They don't do the heavy lifting in a sentence. They're not the verbs that bring writing to life. They're not the nouns. So we know from the millions of documents we analyze every year that sentences with more than 40% of the words as glue words can slow your reader down. Okay, and they can also be rewritten with a greater I suppose more direct and more succinct style. So let's take a look. This report has found 4 sticky sentences in my document. If we go to the first one, here's the highlight. For those on the board who want to get into the detail, a week-by-week timeline is here. You can see my glue words listed here. Okay, so as a writer, I need to get into the mindset of thinking of reader-centered writing. How do I deliver this information, more succinctly without wasting so much of reader's time? And I need more nouns and verbs. What I should be thinking is, okay, how about click here for more information? I'm delivering the same meaning in the sentence, but I'm using far fewer words. And the words that I am using, they're all having to work hard. Now, if you need a bit of help with this, go back into the real-time checker, pick that sentence and rephrase it. And it'll show you suggestions, just like I've given you. If we go to shorten, which will come up in a few seconds. Oh, there we go. It had it actually, didn't it? Yeah, so there we go. A week-by-week timeline is available. A timeline is provided for detail-oriented board members. Find the version that you like. Do it yourself or use the rephrasing tool once we've launched it. Okay. I did mention we'd quickly show you acronyms, so I'm just going to jump in. So here you can see very quickly, I've got 39 acronyms that I'm using, well, 12 different acronyms I'm using 39 times. So things like VG, I'm using 11 times. 12 acronyms, so all the acronyms I'm using are not introduced. Okay, so I need to go to those and just explain each one the first time I'm using it. It also checks and tells me, okay, don't worry, you haven't introduced any multiple times. That's good. You haven't introduced any after the first appearance. And you haven't introduced or used any in a different case. So there's some really good consistency kind of checking going on there to help. Okay, I did mention, again, actually, before we jump into admin, I'm just going to show you what this all looks like in a Word add-in. It's one of our most popular applications. You can see I've got ProWritingAid installed as a tab on my ribbon. And as I click on that, all of those same reports become available. Okay, I hadn't logged in, but you can see, yeah, like I said, all the reports become available. It looks and feels exactly the same. And the only difference with Word is instead of hovering over a highlight, you click on the highlight and that'll bring it up. While we're here, let's take a very quick look at Chrome. So I quite like to demonstrate in LinkedIn. Most of us will have LinkedIn profiles, I'm sure. If I start to create, you can see I've got the Chrome extension installed here. I've got it turned on and I can see this green dot with a little target symbol as I hover it. That is the ProWritingAid dot. That means it's working. If I start to write and introduce a few spelling errors, you can see some highlights appear. Those highlights are ProWritingAid doing its thing. So again, it's my real-time checker, just doing its thing. I can make the changes. If this is a longer document and I want to do a full analysis, if I just click on Open ProWritingAid, that opens my sidebar with goals and improvements. I can open the full editor as well. And that overlays the full editor experience. So if I'm writing a longer document in maybe your CRM system, I can still benefit from all those reports running, but without leaving my Chrome window. Okay, let's close that down and let's have a quick look at some of the admin. Appreciate some of you on the call may be looking at how you're going to use this for your teams. It's really simple. You'll see when you're logged into ProWritingAid from your account or profile page, you've got this left-hand menu. I'm going to go through a few things here. First of these is Teams, and that is your team user management page. So from here, I can manage my license cohort. You've got 200 licenses, but you've got people that leave the team and you've got people that join the team. So here's my ProWritingAid team. Here's Beverly. I can remove Beverly as a user because she left my team yesterday. And instead, I've got a new joiner. So I'm going to assign that license to the new joiner. So I can manage my license cohort really effectively, really efficiently. Managing your spend, obviously, in your investment is really important. In terms of understanding how your team are getting on, we've got a couple of reports also accessible. So you want to look at team activity and team analytics. This is team analytics. I can set the time period. I can look at last week, for example. And I can see that 59% of my team members were active in the last week. Okay, I can see that they made 799 improvements, approximate cost savings and time saving. Those are based on some calculations we do to do with how much it would cost to have an editor make these changes, take the time to make the changes to your documents as you go. You'll also see up here, we count bias improvements. So that's a big point for us. We're looking at inclusivity language around that. Bias 2. I can drill down into the detailed view of how busy, active, my individual team members are. So I can see Sarah here accepted 90 suggestions last week. She was active in ProWritingAid 4 days in the last week. So this helps give me a picture of how, or rather who on my team is engaging with the tool, and also who might need a bit of extra support. Okay, if someone's accepting far more suggestions than everybody else, maybe they need a bit of extra support. And that brings us into some of the customization you can do in ProWriting. And I'm just going to switch here to a different window and show you a bit of that. As Mike said, if you've got questions as we go along, do pop them in the Q&A box. But here I've got the same document open. And I'm going to show you how to create a couple of custom rules. So here again, from this side menu, I'm selecting style guides. You will have your own personal style guides, but you'll also have style guide rules belonging to your team. If you add any style guide rules to your team settings, your team page, then they'll automatically apply to those people in your team. Let's find a really simple example to get started with. So this is one we created for the University of Pennsylvania. Their brand name is University of Pennsylvania, and yet their staff and students all regularly use the term Pennsylvania University, much to the frustration of the marketing and communications team. So they create a really simple rule. This is basically a find and replace. You do it in 4 stages. You add a wrong sentence, so the sentence with the incorrect wording in it. Then you isolate the match. What are the words, specific words that you want the tool to highlight? Then the replacement. What do you want to replace those words with? And then the message. I can test the rule. That tests the logic. If that's green, that means it works. If it were red, there'd be a problem with the logic. And then if I go back into my document, just make some space up here. Oops. And let's paste that in. Turn the real-time checker on. And there we go. It's usually even faster than that, but there we go. There's my rule that I created being highlighted. You see, even with style guide rules, it also allows you to accept all instances in one hit. Let's take a look at a slightly more complex one. And I should add at this point, we have a team of NLP, so linguistic experts, who build style guide rules for customers on a regular basis. If you have a style guide and you would like help automating that style guide, please do get in touch, as Micah described. Okay, this one focuses on the word impactful. I describe impactful as a Marmite word. If you're in the UK, you'll probably get the reference. So Marmite, you either love it or you hate it, as the slogan goes. Many people hate impactful. It's a very weak adjective. There are many better adjectives. Many people think it's even not a proper word. So how are we going to tackle this? Well, it's really easy. We just create a match with impactful. But you'll notice frequently when impactful is used, we use an unnecessary adverb before it, and we want to get rid of that as well. But that adverb could be any adverb. So here we use what's called POS tagging, which is parts of speech tagging. In POS tagging, RB stands for adverb. And by placing the RB in brackets with a tilde here, I'm telling the tool to include any adverb that precedes the word impactful if it is present. But if there is no adverb present, then it should still match the word impactful. And then for my replacement, I want to offer 5 alternative adjectives because I don't know the context. So I want the writer to be able to choose which adjective is a better fit. And by separating each of those with an @ symbol, When they're presented in the pop-up, they will each appear as a separately clickable item. Let's test that rule. Okay, that works perfectly. Let's just make a copy of that and go into our document. Again, make a bit of space. We'll turn the real-time checker off while we're setting this up. So we've got it's incredibly impactful. Let's change one to it's highly impactful, sorry. And let's remove an adverb in one example. Then turn the real-time checker on and look how quickly it's found all of them. There we go. So I've got my alternative options here. I can choose whichever one I want. They're all simply accessible with just one click. That style, guys. They get even more complicated, or complex rather. You can see here we're using regular expression to define a string that helps us with how numbers are formatted. Many of our customers don't have the level of resource to be able to create this level of rule in the team, but we can help with that, like I said. And then finally, brings us to snippets. And snippets is our text expansion tool. If your team are in customer service or somewhere where they're using pre-formatted blocks of text, snippets is ideal. I send a lot of emails of the same nature to new users, so I have those created as snippets. Here's one of those emails. I format it here. I create a shortcut, and that means when I'm in my document, all I've got to do is start writing the name of that snippet, and a pop-up will appear, and I can just click on the one I want, and it will drop it in. For some reason, my machine's completely ground to a halt. Let's see if we can make that work out. There we go. And there's the snippet dropped into the tool. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is ProWritingAid 101. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to walk you through in this session. I'd be interested to know if we've got any questions out there today. I know there is a lot to the tool, so there's a lot you can learn and a lot it can help with, but I'm delighted to be able to walk you through some of that today.
Yep. Tom, I'm just checking a couple on the Q&A. Okay, we do have a couple. First one is going to be with everywhere. What's the difference between that and our current desktop app?
Okay, yes. So ProWritingAid Everywhere. So many of you might have read about ProWritingAid Everywhere. When I talked about our exciting new desktop apps, we call them ProWritingAid Everywhere, and it's them because there's one for Windows and one for Mac. The Mac one has only recently been released. The difference is these are true native desktop apps. So if you are using any desktop software, so let's say you're using Slack or Quip, but you're using a downloaded desktop version, you obviously want to have ProWritingAid working there as well. So even in Notepad, right, you will have those underlines, you'll have access to the real-time checker while you're using that software. And in fact, with ProWritingAid Everywhere, certainly for the Windows version, we roll Microsoft, the Microsoft Office add-in into that install as well. So by installing ProWritingAid Everywhere, you'll also get ProWritingAid in Word, in Outlook on Windows, and this is super exciting, PowerPoint. I think we're the first tool that's actually integrating with PowerPoint. So you'll get the same highlights, same real-time checker in PowerPoint too.
And for those of you who are just super attached to only using the integrations in Word, you still, of course, can download just the Word integration. You do not have to use Everywhere. It just definitely expands the functionality a ton and pretty much is leaps and bounds ahead of where our desktop app was at. So we had basically ability to do markdown documents and things like that. But this really, now you can get it in Slack, you can get it in Discord, you can get it almost in pretty much almost any app that you're using. So it's been a big project, and we have been super excited to finally have that rolling out for both Windows and now Mac as well. Tom, I think our other question was a user happened to see Beyond Grammar in the sidebar, and they were curious as to what that was.
Yeah, okay. So let me actually share my screen again. and we'll take a quick look at Beyond Grammar. So we have a couple of kind of API options. If you are looking for a version of ProWritingAid that integrates with your platform that you've built, maybe it's a platform that you make available to users or consumers on your side, but you want to integrate great kind of grammar checking, spell checking, style checking within it, then Beyond Grammar is a great option. So we have our full API. That's a way that you can kind of configure ProWritingAid to do exactly what you want to do, but in your technology. But we also have Beyond Grammar. And Beyond Grammar, if you can see, you can find all the information out at the bottom of our homepage. Beyond Grammar is a lightweight plugin for rich text editors. So if you're using in your build one of these plugins, TinyMCE, CK Editor, Froala, they're all pretty common these days, then you can plug Beyond Grammar straight in for it to provide real-time checking. So you can see an example here. So this is built in TinyMCE. Obviously, lots of web applications use TinyMCE. And we're just offering real-time checking. And this is incredibly popular. So we have recently, or relatively recently, we've collaborated with the APA, it's American Psychological Association. They have a product called Academic Writer that they make available to all students and university schools. And they integrate, or rather the integrated spelling and style checking within that tool is powered by ProWritingAid. So it's Beyond Grammar working in the background. Other customers are using this just for their teams. They may have a help desk team, for example, that are using built, and they want to incorporate this level of real-time checking within that, and it makes a perfect solution. It's super cheap, super simple, and again, you can find out more information on the webpage or just by contacting me.
All right. Well, Tom, I think that wraps up all of our questions.
Great. Well, it's a great session. Good to meet everybody today.
All right, everyone. Well, have a great rest of your day or your evening, depending on where you're at, and have a great rest of your week. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye all.